In this lesson, we're going to be focusing on checks. Now, checks are the betting units in the game. It's what people use to bet. Each check represents a dollar amount. So you got $1 checks, $5 checks, $25, $100 checks. Depending on the level of the game, obviously your checks are going to be higher or lower. But this is what people use to bet right here. So I say checks because these have a dollar value assigned to them. A lot of players refer to these as chips. Dealers refer to these as checks. The difference between checks and chips is that checks are used for cash games. They have a dollar value assigned to them. Okay, so if you take a $1 check to the cage, they're going to give you $1 in return. Right? Whereas chips are primarily used in tournaments where people bet big amounts. If you're watching the World Series of Poker and they say, he's all in for 10 million, okay? He's in for 10 million chips, not $10 million, right? But it sounds way more exciting. That's why they do it. So that's the difference between checks and chips. So there's three major techniques that we're going to go over. We're going to go over sizing the chips, okay? We're going to go over cutting the chips. And we're going to go over chip breakdowns, how you run down stacks. Okay. These three techniques are primarily used with big bets or all-in situations. A lot of my students really struggle in this area because they don't practice. It's really important to put the time in. That's why we're starting with this first. If it's the first lesson, you got no excuse. You should be practicing this the entire time. It's that important. Generally, they get into a point where they're done with the course and they can calculate a pot limit Omaha bet, a really complicated math bet. They can read the board, they can run the games perfect, but as soon as someone goes all in, it takes them 5 minutes to count the chips. Obviously, if it takes you 5 minutes to count an all-in bet, that's going to affect your hands per hour. Your bosses are going to be mad because you're not making the house money, and the players are going to be mad because you're stalling the game. So even though it's not as exciting as dealing a hand, it's very important to focus on these basics and get these down so that you can make yourself and the house more money.